You make $63,000 a year. You live in an apartment with a parking spot you actually use. You drive a car that costs less than 2/3 of your salary. Nobody in your family ever crossed $100,000 in a single account. The most expensive thing you own is the laptop you're watching this on. And in 14 years from now, you are going to be a millionaire. Not from luck, not from a side hustle that takes off, not from crypto or real estate or a book deal. From doing one specific boring thing, on the same boring salary, for long enough that the math stops being something you read about and starts being something that happens to you. This is what that actually looks like, month by month, year by year, from the inside. You are 26 years old, and you are standing at a bus stop in Cleveland on a Wednesday morning in March. You work as a project coordinator for a regional healthcare network. The job is fine. You like your team. The work is unglamorous, but it pays. Your salary is $63,000 a year. After federal tax, state tax, FICA, health insurance, and the 4% you contribute to your 401k, which is what HR told you was a good start when you were onboarded. You bring home about $3,600 a month. Rent is $1,200. Car payment is $280. Student loans are $250. Groceries are about $350. Utilities, phone, insurance, the gym you go to 3 times a week, the streaming services you almost cancel every quarter and never do. At the end of every month, there's somewhere between $400 and $600 left. That number does not feel like the start of anything. You have a senior colleague named Lisa. She's 34. She drives a 5-year-old Honda. She brings her lunch in a glass container. She wears clothes that look indistinguishable from yours. Nothing about her telegraphs anything. One morning, in the break room, she mentions almost in passing that she just crossed $320,000 in her brokerage account. You actually stop pouring your coffee. She has been at the company for 8 years, similar role to yours, roughly the same salary band. No inheritance, no second income, no real estate empire, just a number that crept up on her while she wasn't looking. You ask her how. She thinks about it for a second. The way people pause when the truth is shorter than the question. You think about that for the rest of the day. The bus stop. The $400 at the end of the month. The number that didn't feel like the start of anything, and might be. You go home that night and you open a spreadsheet. Not an app, not a course, not a podcast someone recommended. A spreadsheet, because a spreadsheet has no opinions, and is not trying to sell you anything, and will show you exactly what is true. You list everything that comes in. You list everything that goes out. You look at the categories without flinching, which is harder than you expected, because the categories tell you things about yourself you have been half knowing for years. $170 a month on food delivery. $73 in subscription services you forgot you were paying for until the spreadsheet found them. $290 in the last quarter under a category you eventually had to label miscellaneous, which is the word you use when you don't want to look too closely. The total is not catastrophic. That's the important part. You are not drowning. You are leaking. Slowly. In amounts so small that no individual charge ever made you pause. But when you add them up across 12 months, an entire vacation's worth of money has disappeared into things you cannot remember. You make 4 decisions that night. First, you raise your 401k contribution from 4% to 12%. Your take-home will drop by about $200 a month. You will not feel it the way you would feel losing $200 in cash, because payroll deductions are quieter than cash. The money leaves before it ever arrives in your account. Second, you open a Roth IRA. You set it up to automatically transfer $300 on the first of every month into a single low-cost total market index fund. Not individual stocks, not whatever your cousin recommended. A fund that owns a small piece of every public company in the country, because you have read enough now to understand that very few people beat the market over 30 years, and the ones who try mostly just pay fees for the privilege of underperforming. Third, you cancel the food delivery apps, not because $170 a month will determine whether you are rich. Because the spreadsheet showed you that money has been moving in a direction without your permission. That direction needs to change first, or none of the other decisions matter. Fourth, and this one is the hardest to commit to, you decide that you will not touch either of these accounts, not for a trip, not for a wedding. Not because the market drops and your stomach tightens and every instinct tells you to do something, you will not touch them. The whole thing takes about 45 minutes. The actual mechanism of changing your life is unceremonious. You close the laptop, make tea, and go to bed. Nothing has changed. Everything has. 15 months into the experiment, you get a raise. 3.5%. Your salary moves from 63 to 65,000 and change. The default thing to do with a raise, the thing almost everyone does, is to let it find its way into your life. A slightly nicer apartment. A slightly nicer car when the current one starts feeling old. The restaurants you've been watching co-workers walk into. This is what's called lifestyle inflation. It's not a moral failure, it's just the direction water flows when you don't redirect it. You redirect it, you raise your 401k contribution by 2 more percentage points. You add $50 to your monthly Roth transfer, the raise disappears into the future. You feel it for about a week. Then your nervous system adjusts and you stop noticing. This happens again in year 3. A promotion this time. You're now a senior project coordinator. The title is slightly different. The salary moves to $72,000. You run the same play. Contribution rates up. No new apartment. No new car. No new lifestyle. Somewhere in this period, you have dinner with college friends. One of them just bought a condo. Another took a job at a startup with stock options that may or may not be worth something in 3 years. A third is talking about a Tulum trip with a tone that implies you are supposed to know what Tulum is. The conversation moves the way these conversations move, comparisons dressed up as updates. And there is a specific kind of discomfort that arrives when you realize that from the outside, your life looks like nothing has happened. Same job, same apartment, same car, same you. You feel it clearly. And then you do not say anything. Because what would you say? That you have $96,000 in accounts your friends can't see from the outside. That your net worth is growing faster than the friend who upgraded her apartment and now pays $400 more in rent every month for a view she barely looks at. You order the salmon. You laugh at the right times. You drive home in the same car. You park in the same lot. You check your accounts on Sunday because that's the day you've decided to check them. Combined balance, $96,400. You are 29. It does not feel real, and also it is completely real. Of course it does. This is a feature of the system, not a failure of it. Though it does not feel like a feature when you open the app on a Tuesday morning and see that the number you spent 4 years building has dropped by $26,000 in 7 weeks. You are 31. You had $174,000 across both accounts. Now you have 148. Then 139. Then 131. Financial News is using the word crash, which is a word specifically engineered to make your hands move. You do not move them. This is the hardest part of the entire thing. It is not the budgeting. It is not the years of not upgrading. It is not the dinners where your life did not look like progress. It is sitting with a declining number on a Tuesday morning and not doing anything about it because you understand that doing something is exactly what turns a temporary loss into a permanent one. Understanding that intellectually and feeling it in your body are not the same location. You text Lisa because she has been through 2 of these now. She replies in under a minute. You keep contributing. 11 months after the bottom, the combined accounts are at $241,000. You are 32. Something has changed in the math. Not externally, the rules didn't shift. But the base is now large enough that the percentage gains move real money. You did not earn that $16,000. You did not work for it. It arrived because productive assets, given enough time and not enough interference, eventually do this. That is the whole secret. Dressed up in a lot of words. A cousin calls you on a Sunday. He's 24. He just landed a real job after 2 years of contract work. Stable salary now, health insurance, direct deposit. He's been listening to a podcast about investing, and he doesn't know where to start. You walk him through it. The 401k match, the Roth IRA, the total market index fund, the automatic transfers, the part where you don't touch the money, the part where the market drops and you don't touch it then either. He is quiet for a second. That's it? That sounds too easy. You think about how to answer. Because it is easy. And also it is one of the hardest things a person can do in a country that is organized at every level around the proposition that you should spend money, now specifically, on something that signals you are doing well. Every advertisement, every social feed, every cultural cue about what a successful life is supposed to look like is pointing at consumption. You decided to point at something else. You tell him to open the account tonight, before the call ends, before the week starts and the week takes over. Because the gap between deciding and doing is where almost every plan dies. He opens it while you're still on the phone. He sets the transfer to $150 a month because that's what he can do right now. Will this actually work? He asks. You look at your app. You are 34. The combined number is 493,000. Yeah, you say. It works. You are 40 years old when the combined balance crosses $1 million. Your salary, after 13 years of 3 to 5% raises, a couple of promotions, and one lateral move that opened up better growth at a slightly different department, is now $84,000. You drive a car that is 6 years old. You live in the same building you moved into when you were 33, though you upgraded from a 1-bedroom to a 2-bedroom 3 years ago because you decided the second room, for an office, for guests, for the unaccounted-for things of life, was worth it. That was the only real upgrade. You open the app. You look at the number. You set the phone face down on the table. It does not feel the way you expected it to feel. There is no celebration, no external signal. The city sounds the same. The coffee tastes the same. The building looks the same. And also 14 years of one repeated decision have produced a number that most people in this country will never see in their lifetime. You think about what it cost, not the money, the other things, the dinners where you ordered the chicken while other people ordered the wine pairing, the trips you didn't take in your late 20s, the car that was fine but never impressed anyone, the years of looking from the outside like nothing was happening. You don't regret any of it. You want to be precise about that. This is not a story about suffering. You went on trips. You bought the things that mattered to you. You lived. You just lived inside a structure that kept the trajectory pointed in one direction. The 7-figure number does not change who you are. It does not fix what was already complicated. It does not make you better at relationships or calmer in traffic or more patient with your parents. What it does is something subtler. It removes a specific category of choice from being made under pressure. You no longer say yes to a job because you have to. You no longer stay in a city because the rent is locked in. You no longer keep a relationship because you can't afford to start over. You no longer make the small daily decisions that compound into a life based on what you can survive. You make them based on what you want. That category of choice, the freedom to choose without fear pulling the steering wheel, is what the number bought. Not the apartment, not the car, not the dinner. The recovery of choice. And you didn't know how much of your life had been making decisions out of fear until the fear quieted down enough to hear yourself think. Somewhere right now in a city you've never visited, a 26-year-old is standing at a bus stop on a Wednesday morning in March. They make $60,000 a year. They live in an apartment with a roommate. They have $400 left at the end of every month. They have a senior colleague who is calmer about money than they understand yet how to be. Tonight, they are going to open a spreadsheet. Or they're not. Most people don't. Most people are going to keep doing the same thing they were already doing, because the boring decision feels too small to matter, too slow to trust, too unremarkable to be the answer when the question feels this big. They are wrong about that. But not in a way they will know for 14 years. The number in their account does not matter as much as the direction they decide to move in tonight. $200 a month at 26 becomes the same shape of life as $500 a month at 26, just with different zeros at the end, because the variable that does most of the work is time. And time is the one thing they currently have in abundance, without yet realizing that this is the part of their life when it is cheapest and most powerful and most easily wasted. If this changed how you think about what 14 years can do, subscribe. We publish honest conversations about money every Tuesday and Friday. Next up, why most self-made millionaires aren't who you think they are. The hidden patterns behind real wealth and what almost nobody talks about. See you there.